You're listening to the Iterators of the Imperium.
Hi, I'm Miss, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Ryan. And you're listening to Season 6 of the Iterators of the Imperium podcast, the podcast in which Ryan, yes, still is the expert on Warhammer 40k, and I, sadly, yes, I am still the noob trying to learn about the Warhammer universe. And we are balls deep into Ahriman, and I think this is going to be a... Wait, what? What? What did I say?
Balls deep into Ahriman, really?
Oh yeah, balls. No, I'm not going to read you this. Ryan, I'm sticking to what I said. This is the continuation of being balls deep into Ahriman. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. I don't know if I do, but let's continue.
Okay, moving on rapidly. Yeah, we are continuing on with the Ahriman storyline. You can call this a part 2 if you want. So, I don't know how much you remember from last time, but just as a quick summary, we left off with Ahriman having defeated Ammon, taking control of Ammon's, cult of sorcerers, because he decided that he was going to, lead them since he put them in this shitty position in the first place by killing most of them. So Ahriman now kind of has a bit of purpose behind him again. He's like, I'm going to fix this. They're going to try and fix it. He's tried to fix it before. It's the whole thing. So he now has purpose, an army of sorcerers and rubric marines, and a new flagship, because he stole Ammon's flagship, the Sycorax. And between that whole plot and like the next major plot that we're going to get into today, there's like a couple of minor storylines that we'll quickly mention just to expand on a couple of characters a little bit. So there's a few like characters that come into this because Ahriman now has a bunch more of his brothers on side since he's got Ammon's whole cult with him now, right? Mm-hmm. So there's for example, there is Sanek, who is like a master sorcerer. There is, he's a master swordsman and a sorcerer. There is Ignis, who is, I believe, like a master of destructive sorcery. So like the whole thing was like destroying entire cities and things like that. And there is, for example, Caduceus. He's the one that these two minor storylines are going to focus on. Caduceus, he has like a special ability, right? Because like once in a while, sorcerers have like a unique skill that no other sorcerer has. So his unique ability, right? It surrounds like binding demons, so you can control them. So to control a demon, you need to know its actual like true name, right? Because if you ask a demon its name, it'll have a name, but it'll be like blah blah blah, the fucking changer of colors or some nonsense like that. The weaver of fates, the pasta maker. Like they all have stupid titles, right? And it'll be some made up name before it. And this is just what people call it. But it's not its actual name. Its actual name will be something that, is just like a concept. Like no one can actually say it because it's like, you need to be able to like dislocate your tongue to even make some of the sounds.
Like a good challenge, though. But let's take this.
Yeah, fair. So, yeah, once you can like learn the true name of a demon, and there's loads of ways you can do that, you can then kind of bind the demon to your will and make it do what you want it to do. So, like, to get a demon's real name, a lot of the time it's stuff like summoning them in some big ritual that like sticks them in place. So they're like summoned into like a brief trap, and you can, if you're powerful enough, you can force them to tell you the name and things like that. So usually the way this is done is you would summon them, get the name out of them, and then put it into a book or something like that, like an object, so you can use that object to control them. But Caduceus, his special ability is that he can learn the name from them and then like separate it into parts within his mind and like bind the parts to like memories, to like mnemonic devices and stuff like that. So he always knows their name without having to like, brand it into a physical object. So he can just control them like that. It's much easier for him. It's very unique skill that no one else seems to have, so it makes him a very valuable asset to Ahriman.
I would say very OP as well. No,
Yeah, because he can basically just call up demons at will.
this that's
Yeah.
fine.
It's fucking bullshit. Uh, there, I think there's a bunch of people that do stuff like this and work with demons and things like that, and they're all called diabolists. It's just the term for
Yeah.
someone that, works with demons like that. But he's like a very unique brand of diabolist. There's actually quite a cool one that turns up in the what's his name? Fabius Bile storyline. There's a diabolist turns up in there that like ends up bound to Fabius's life. He like plants a bomb inside the guy that'll go off if Fabius dies. He's like, "You are my underling forever. If I die, you die. Deal with it."
Yeah, in this together, yeah.
Oh yeah, ride or die, bitch. But that Diabolist is also quite fun. When they write a character that's a Diabolist, they tend to be really fun characters. But the first kind of minor plot that goes on is basically just Ahriman taking advantage of Caduceus. So do you remember the Oracle, the dude that had like turned into a big weird mutant thing within a little black moon that Ahriman went to for answers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they go back to him. The whole idea is that Ahriman wants to use him. Wants to use Caduceus for some weird plan that he's got here. So Ahriman, Astraeos, Caduceus, and Sanact, the swordsman, head back to the moon that has this oracle, Main Kaora, in it. And the idea is to bind the oracle using Caduceus. Because he's basically more demon than Space Marine at this point. So you can bind him. He will have like a demon name now. Unfortunately, they get there, find out the place has already been attacked by Nurgle's demons. Whole thing ends up with Caduceus having to bind a Great Unclean one of Nurgle's biggest demons, which is quite an impressive feat in itself, because they are really powerful demons. But Caduceus has to bind one of these, since it had basically already eaten Menkaura's soul. And then he kind of just passes out because that's a really stressful thing to do, so his body just kind of like collapses afterwards. The only real information gained from any of this is just from Caduceus speaking to the Oracle as he like passes out. He like talks to him in his dreams, and the Oracle basically is just like, Ahriman's probably like doing this to gather like a stronger army because he knows shit's about to go down. So like, maybe prepare yourself for that. So this whole thing was basically Ahriman's plan all along, just totally using this guy. But the Oracle's like, yeah, maybe like be ready to run, because like you don't need a Great Unclean one on side unless you know shit is about to go sideways real quick. So that's the first kind of minor plot line. The second one also is about Caduceus, but it's in a weird way. So I should mention there's a dude called Be'lakor that I should have mentioned him at some point up until now, but he hasn't really came up. This is Be'lakor.
Oh god.
Yeah, big winged demon monster thing, right?
Looks like
So-
death.
He kind of does. He also kind of looks like the Balrog from Lord of the Rings.
No, but actually.
Yeah, just black instead of red.
Yeah.
So Be'lakor is a big deal. He actually is in every kind of Warhammer. He's in fantasy as well as 40k, and he's the same character. So he was the first human to be turned into a demon by like following chaos, right? And it's chaos undivided. So he just follows chaos as a concept, not one particular god. So he has power from all four of the major gods, or all four of the chaos gods. And at the start, they all kind of tried to get him to pick a side, because he was really powerful, obviously, right? So at the start, all four of them are kind of vying for him to work for them. But Be'lakor's a bit of a wild card and wouldn't really get on board with any one god, because I don't know, whatever reason. So eventually the Chaos Gods are kind of go, well, sack this. We'll just get a new guy that works for me in particular. So pretty quickly they were just getting new demon princes and stuff like that instead of Be'lakor. So Be'lakor's kind of left standing in the background like a spare prick, where no one really giving a shit about him, but he's still immensely powerful. So he just goes around fucking up the plans of all the Chaos followers. It's just like a bit of like a chaos number within the chaos, you know? Just turns up to ruin everyone's day no matter what. So, here's an important thing for this, right? Caduceus had made a deal with Be'lakor, right? For in the case that Caduceus should die, Be'lakor will protect him or save him from the demons that Caduceus controls, right? Because as soon as he dies, all those demons are going to be having his soul for fucking binding me, the prick. They're all going to want revenge, right? So he's recruited the biggest, baddest demon he could and got him to protect him, right? That's the whole thing. So, Caduceus does die, right? He does die. I believe a hellhound kills him, or something like that. Anyway, he's murdered anyway, that's the important bit here. Fuck knows, who cares how he dies? He dies. So, Be'lakor rocks up for this deal that they had. But it is revealed that this was all like a long game kind of thing that Be'lakor had set up so that he could meet Ahriman. So when he turns up after Caduceus dies, he meets Ahriman and explains this whole thing was like a long con so he could get his hands on the guy. Ahriman then reveals, because his whole power is seeing the fucking future, that he knew this was Be'lakor's plan and has set up many traps. So Be'lakor comes up, explains his whole plan like an evil genius from a fucking James Bond film, and then goes, bollocks, I'm stuck here. So, in exchange...
No. Just...
In exchange for Be'lakor's freedom, he gives Ahriman back Caduceus. So Caduceus just comes back to life.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah, Be'lakor's told to just, you know, take a walk. Like, sod off, mate. We're done with you. So those are the two kind of minor plots that go on between that first story and the second one. For the record, that second one where Caduceus dies may not occur at that time. It may occur after the next major plot, like between the next one and the one after. It's kind of unclear when this occurs because the Ahriman storyline is not like well placed in the timeline, if you get what I mean. Like, there's very little goes on to tell you when things occur, and a lot of it takes place over, like, large periods of time. So, you never really know exactly when things are going on. There is a point ahead of us that, like, the 13th Black Crusade is going on at the same time. So we know exactly when that is, but we don't know how far behind that point we currently are. It could be 50 years, it could be, like, 500, it could be... again, a couple thousand. It doesn't really place it. So, in that same theme, we don't really know when that whole Caduceus dying and Be'lakor turning up thing occurred. It might have been after this next storyline, it might have been at this point. It's... yeah, we know it's after the first one, because Caduceus is with Ahriman, but after that it gets a bit confusing, so... Wouldn't worry about it too much, just letting you know, because someone that's watching might have been like, actually, it occurs after the next... whatever, right? Like, you don't know that any more than I do, it's unclear. Are you ready to hop into, like, the next major storyline?
I think so.
Good. I love the somewhat confidence. Not at all, can we please stop for today?
No, it's fine. Let's go.
Alright, okay. So, the next major storyline revolves around this thing called the Athenaeum of Kalimakus, right? Kalimakus was a human who was, like, given to Magnus the Red back during the heresy to, I don't know, record him as a person, right? But Kalimakus was a writer. He was a remembrancer, but remembrancers came in all art forms. There was painters, like, journalists, writers, whatever, right? This guy was a writer. So he basically just followed Magnus around with a big-ass tome and basically wrote down everything this guy said. Right? Just every little musing or everything like that. He just anything Magnus told him to write down, he fucking wrote it down in this book. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was just like personal scribe to the dude. So after Prospero fell, Kalimakus obviously went on the run. He was like, fuck this, I'm not getting involved in Space Marine wars. Like, I'm just a guy. Sack this. So he fled, realizing that the book he had was obviously full of really dangerous information because it's all in Magnus's writings. He went to the Inquisition and was like, can you protect me? Can you hide me? So they were like, no problem. And they hid him away on some little backwater planet where he could live out the last of his life.
Mm-hmm.
A cult did kind of form over like his writings with time, mainly because that book is basically an exact copy of the Book of Magnus. Magnus's tome that he carries with him at all times, because he basically wrote down everything the guy said. So it's an incredibly dangerous like sorcery tome at this point. So yeah, a cult of weirdos did kind of pop up in almost worship of it. But so that was a thing that was left kind of on the back burner for like 6,000 years, and no one really, or 10,000 years, I should say, and no one really thought about it much. Right? It was just a thing that some Inquisition people knew about. So that aside, we'll get into things, right? So there's a few groups involved in this. Obviously, you got Ahriman and his new, more built-up cult that he's got of all Ammon's followers and things. There is a group of space wolves led by a rune priest called Cichlid. I don't really know how to pronounce it properly. I believe it's Cichlid, or Cichlid. But these space wolves are following Ahriman's trail through the galaxy, trying to hunt him down. And there's also an inquisitor called Iobel, which is also trying to hunt Ahriman. Because there's a whole thing where the Inquisition has like a seer, so like a psyker who can see the future, but is not a very good psyker and is kind of insane, who gives the Inquisition like a prophecy that Ahriman is coming, basically. And then they execute the seer, because that's what you do to seers in the Inquisition. So yeah, there's two groups hunting Ahriman, and Ahriman's kind of in the middle, like, what am I going to do next? And I guess as a last like setting up thing, do you remember Ahriman got shot in the first section, and the shards of the bullet kind of like fucked with his powers?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Inquisitor shot him, yeah. So he's still dealing with that. So a lot of the shards were removed, but some of them are still stuck inside his body, weakening his powers. Because he can't use his powers on them because they're like anathema to the warp. So he can't like pull them out with magic or anything like that. So they're kind of just stuck inside him. So he's just like manipulated his body to like keep them in place and heal around the damage they're doing. But they are weakening him. That is, or they have weakened him. That is a thing that is going on that he's dealing with at the same time. It becomes important later on, but just mentioning it now. Yeah. So moving forward, Ahriman does this whole, seeing the future through his dreams pish to get a strand of destiny. The whole point is he's like trying to see the future. He's specifically trying to see how to get to one particular future, like how to orchestrate this one future to occur, right? So he follows this like strand of fate to do this, right? And it's going to be, he needs to meet this Inquisitor Iobel, who is currently hunting him. To do that, he needs to, make something, like set some things in motion so that he'll meet her down the line. He's like fighting a war through time rather than space or anything like that. He's like, I'm going to plan this well in advance, set some shit in motion, and then she'll be right in front of me when I need her. So the whole thing is, Iobel has the information about where the Athenaeum of Kalimakus is. So, yeah. So, Ahriman calls up one of his old friends that he needs for this plan. Ignis, the master sorcerer who blows shit up. Right? He needs this dude on hand. And they go to this planet called Vohal. And it's just a normal fucking, like, random Imperial world. They kidnap the leader, and then they bombard the planet, so it's basically just dust. Right? This is the whole orchestrating the meeting, right? It seems weird that they just blow up a planet, but like this is like all planned out perfectly. And then 2 years pass, They have to wait 2 years for this plan to come to, its head, right? And in this 2 year gap, Astrios, the rogue space marine psyker that Ahriman took as a student, yeah, so he is captured by the Inquisition and interrogated within this 2 year gap since they decimated that planet. And he reveals to the Inquisition that some fake memory about Ahriman's plan for Vohal. So that is the last stage of setting this whole thing in motion, because now they have the wrong information and they're going to go there to try and deal with Ahriman and just walk right into his trap. So 2 years later, once the trap is to be sprung, there is a fortress on Vohal, right? And the Inquisition are using this as the location of a council meeting, basically. A bunch of Inquisitors are getting together to discuss what to do about Ahriman, because he's a major threat, and they know he's coming. So they're like, let's get ahead of the game here. Let's have a plan to go and fuck him up. This brings Iobel to Vohal on this exact day, because she's called to this council meeting of Inquisitors. As this council is, setting up and getting ready, Ahriman's fleet turns up, and all-out war breaks out. Ahriman and his dudes teleport into the council chamber where this meeting's going on, and basically murder everyone there except Iobel, and kidnap her. Because, that was the whole point. We wanted Iobel. Sometime around this point, Astrios, who is being psychically interrogated by a Grey Knight, breaks free from the interrogation, gets into a fight with the Grey Knight, and seems to die. He seems to be murdered by the Grey Knight. That's a side issue though. Ahriman's not really bothered at this point. So I've got the Inquisitor I wanted to kidnap now. I'm good. He can do what he likes. So they take Iobel back onto their flagship, and the whole fleet just fucks off into the galaxy while they organize the next stage of this.
Okay.
So Ahriman's gonna psychically interrogate her to find out the information he needs, the location of this book, right? Because it's quite a well-hidden secret. A couple of Inquisitors will know it, but it was easiest to get Iobel, because that's where fate lined up, I guess, in this particular future. I don't know why it had to be her. It had to be her, apparently. So, around this kind of stage, Ahriman explains to his people the whole reasoning behind all of this, why he's doing any of this. And he wants to redo the rubric ritual, because he thinks the reason it failed the first time is because there's some flaw in Magnus's writing in the original spell. So he wants to get what is essentially a copy of the Book of Magnus, so he can look over it, find the flaw in it, fix it, and then cast the ritual again, but now in a proper state. It's not a bad plan. Not a great plan, because it works off of the basis that Magnus is bad at his job, and being that he's the sorcerer king of the galaxy, second only to the god of sorcery, I don't think that's a safe bet to take, that he's probably, bad at his job, but that's the bet Ahriman is taking here.
Yeah.
It's not a great gamble, but that's the gamble he's taking. It's the only thing you can think of. I couldn't have done anything wrong. My thoughts couldn't have been flawed from the beginning. It has to be my dad.
A little bit narcissistic trait,
A little bit. It's
a little bit.
I should also mention that the space wolves that are following them, they're following Ahriman through the galaxy through I guess key points where he spent a bunch of time. So, they find the ship he was on right at the very beginning when he was pretending to be someone else, and which was the Blood Crescent. And they kill a bunch of the people on this ship and eat them, and find out that Ahriman was there, and they manage to, track him further with that. So eventually they find the wreckage of the last ship they were on, the Titan Child, that they blew up when they took the new flagship. They find the wreckage of that and manage to trace that even further forward. So the Space Wolves are gradually closing in on Ahriman's current location. It's not great for him, but yeah. So while Ahriman is setting up his whole psychic interrogation of the Inquisitor, his fleet is kind of just left waiting in space for him to like tell them where to go next. They're just stuck waiting for him. So while that stuff's going on, there's obviously a lot of like internal discussion among Ahriman's dudes because character building and all that. So there's like a background plot goes on here where Sanact and Ignis get together and they talk a bit, and they're both a little bit bothered by the fact that Ahriman doesn't seem to give a shit that 4 of their brothers died trying to kidnap the Inquisitor. So they're both a bit unhappy with that, and you kind of get the feeling that there's a bit of like resentment or a grudge building, which is not great since Ignis is like his new right-hand man. They seem to be getting on quite well, like Ignis and Sanac. They seem to be like getting a bit too close, a bit too bonded over this whole, Ahriman's a bit too willing to let us die kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That whole plot line kind of moves forward in a minute, but Ahriman does start doing the interrogation thing. It's basically just him following her through her memories, like ones that are her path to ending up with Ahriman. So like initially it's her in like a battlefield killing some possessed psyker and hearing like a rumor of like the lost sons of Prospero or something like that. And it's all these little bits that feed into her eventually just hunting Ahriman in particular. But along that path she learned about the location of the Athenaeum of Kalimakus. So he's like following her through these memories, which is a lot of like just her killing heretics or sorcerers or whatever else, and then him possessing one of the people with her and just harassing her briefly. It's kind of funny because he's quite a dick about it. Like he's really just an arsehole to her about it. Because every time they like move forward, she's like, "Oh no, I'm going to protect my memories of that from him," and then it skips forward, and she's like, "Shit, I didn't protect my memories from him. I'm bad at this." And he's just like, "Yeah, you kind of are." He's just like a really snarky bitch about the whole thing, which is really funny. So the interrogation obviously takes a long time. Like they're there for ages. And the whole B plot with Ignis and Sanact kind of moves forward a little bit. So Ignis calls a bunch of like minor warband leaders to meet him, because like the massive like army that Ahriman has on hand is made up of a bunch of little chaos warbands that have all came together under like Ammon's banner and now Ahriman's banner, right? But they're all still like operating as like little individual groups to a degree, so they all have their own ships and stuff like that. So Ignis calls a bunch of these warlords to him, and he explains that like Ahriman seems a bit too willing to let us die, and he's kind of just leading us to do the same crazy fucking ritual again that failed the first fucking time. So why would it work the second fucking time? And he kind of tries to recruit these war leaders to join him in like ousting Ahriman. He's trying to like build like an uprising against Ahriman, which is really really unfortunate since he is like Ahriman's right hand man right now. A bit traitorous. Although they are traitor space marines, so like that's not a big surprise. Treachery is kind of their whole thing, but like it's not a great look. One of the warband leaders is like, "Fuck you, I'm not turning against Ahriman." He's like a hardcore loyalist, so Ignis guns him down. And the others kind of just get on board with the program, because otherwise they'll get gunned down. Which is fun. So, yeah, we can kind of see this future where Ignis is going to try and rise up and take out Ahriman. So, Ahriman is like poised in a position to find out where this tome that he's looking for is and go after it to be able to like fulfill his goals. But at the same time, the Inquisition is no longer really an enemy. That's like one major threat is gone because they kidnapped the one that was leading the hunt for him. And murdered a bunch of the other ones. So like that's kind of, set aside. The Space Wolves are closing in, so like one major enemy is gone, the other is rapidly approaching, but now there's a third one rising up from his own ranks, which, not great.
Yeah.
No. And I guess as like a last thing to round out this section, because I'm trying to like split these major plots into like two sections where it's like building up to everything and then like massive conclusion where we tie everything off, you know? So I guess
Yeah.
as like a final kind of tying off point here, it is revealed that Astrios did not actually die at the hands of the Grey Knight. He is currently being held captive and interrogated by the Inquisition. So the Inquisition are still a player in this, and they do have Astrios, so they're getting information about Ahriman, so they're gonna find him.
Actually.
Eventually, probably sooner rather than later as well. So Ahriman now stands on this like precipice where he's like, I can move forward into my major goal and fix everything finally, while enemies are just like surrounding him on all sides, and he doesn't even realize.
Lucky mate.
Yeah, just, unfortunate, really. It's just unfortunate. So yeah, I think that's a good place to leave off for today, because we've set up everything we need to set up, and next time we'll, see how it all, falls down around him like a house of cards.
Like domino effect.
Exactly, that's exactly what it's going to be. I
Uh,
feel like we could see a good thing where maybe you can get all three of the enemy groups to like fight each other while he just runs away or something. I like those things. Once in a while, those things go on in the Warhammer novels, and it's fucking fantastic. Where they just accidentally pose everyone against each other. Oh, would you like to round us out for today?
Sure can do. Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Iterators of the Imperium podcast. It's been me, Miss, and Ryan, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care and peace.